The sun was blazing over the dusty shooting range at Camp Pendleton, California, where a group of young Marine snipers were sweating under their gear, trying to hit a steel target nearly 1,000 yards away. The air was thick with tension and frustration. These were some of the best marksmen in training, yet every shot seemed to miss by inches. Their rifles were state of the art, their optics flawless, but their focus wavered. The target mocked them with its silence, standing unscathed. The instructor barked orders, but nothing seemed to work. The Marines adjusted their scopes, their breathing, their posture, but still, the bullets hit dirt or whizzed off the mark. One of them slammed his rifle on the table in anger. "Damn it, this wind's impossible," he muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. Just then, from the shade of a nearby observation tower, an old man stepped forward. His hair was white, his back slightly bent, but his eyes were sharp as a hawk's. He wore faded fatigues and a cap with the words "Vietnam Veteran" stitched across the front. The range master greeted him with respect. "Morning, Sergeant Major," he said, nodding. "Didn't expect you here today." The old man, known simply as Sergeant Major Tom Hawk Reynolds, gave a slow smile. "Heard some boys are missing their targets. Thought I'd see what the problem is." The young Marines exchanged skeptical glances. What could this old-timer possibly teach them? They had the best rifles, the latest gear, and modern training. Hawk walked to the firing line, inspecting the rifles, feeling the air, and squinting toward the target. Then he knelt down, picked up a handful of dirt, and let it slip slowly through his fingers as the wind carried it east. "There's your problem," he said calmly. "You're fighting the wind instead of reading it." The Marines looked puzzled. "Sir, we accounted for wind drift," one of them said confidently. "We've got the meters, the readings, everything." Hawk chuckled. "You boys got gadgets. We had instinct." He motioned for one of them to hand over a rifle. The Marine hesitated, then passed him an M40 sniper rifle. Hawk adjusted the bipod, lay flat on the ground, and looked through the scope. His hands were steady as stone. He closed one eye, breathing slow and deep. "You don't need to fight the wind," he murmured. "You dance with it." For a long moment he said nothing, only watched the swaying grass and the tiny dust clouds shifting downrange. Then he squeezed the trigger. Crack! A sharp ring echoed across the field. The sound of bullets striking steel. The Marines froze. He'd hit the target dead center. Hawk didn't even look up. He just smirked and said, "That's how it's done, boys." The Marines surrounded him, suddenly eager and why, died. "How did you do that?" one asked. Hawk pointed toward the far hill. "You see that little shimmer in the air? That's not heat. It's wind. You don't rate it with a meter. You feel it on your face, you smell it. You see how the grass bends. You let the land talk to you." His words carried a strange authority, the kind that only comes from years of war and experience. The Marines listened like schoolboys. Hawk continued, "Back in '68, in the jungles of Vietnam, we didn't have fancy scopes or rangerfinders. We had our eyes, our guts, and our patience. We learned that hitting a target isn't about the gun, it's about the man behind it." He lay down again and gestured for one of them to take position beside him. "Now, show me your breathing," he said. The Marine aimed downrange, trying to control his breath. Hawk shook his head. "You're forcing it. You don't control the breath, you flow with it. Every heartbeat counts. Every pull of the trigger should be like a whisper." The Marine adjusted, inhaled, exhaled slowly, and fired. Clang! The bullet struck near the center. "Better." Hawk nodded. "Now again." One by one, each Marine took turns under his watchful eye. Within minutes, the once missed target began to ring repeatedly as bullet after bullet found its mark. The frustration faded, replaced by a growing sense of pride and awe. The old veteran moved between them with quiet precision, adjusting their posture, correcting their grip, reminding them of things no manual could teach. "A sniper's not just a shooter," he said. "He's a ghost. He reads the earth, feels the air, and waits for the perfect heartbeat." As the sun dipped lower, Hawk finally stood, brushing the dust off his uniform. The Marines, now grinning and confident, looked toward him with newfound respect. Their earlier arrogance had melted away. "Thank you, sir," one said, standing at attention. Hawk smiled softly. "Don't thank me. Thank the rifle. Treat it like a brother. and it'll never betray you." As he turned to leave, the range master called out, "Sergeant Major, you still got it." Hawk chuckled over his shoulder. "Son, you don't lose something like that. You just let it rest a while." He walked away slowly, his figure fading into the golden light of the setting sun. The Marines watched in silence, the distant clangs of their next shots echoing behind him. Later that evening, as they cleaned their rifles, one of them whispered, "That guy's a legend." Another nodded. "Yeah, and now we know why." What they didn't know was that Hawk Reynolds had been one of the most decorated Marine snipers in history, credited with countless confirmed hits and a lifetime of service. Yet he never boasted, he just loved the art of the shot. To him, being a sniper was never about glory, it was about patience, respect, and precision. The next day, when the young Marines returned to the range, they found a small note pinned to the target. It read, "Remember, the target never moves. The shooter does. Stay still, breathe, believe. Hawk." They smiled, aimed down their scopes, and one by one, hit the bullseye. The old man had taught them something no textbook ever could: the true spirit of a Marine sniper. The scorching sun hung high over the dusty California horizon, baking the sprawling sniper range at Camp Pendleton. A line of young Marine snipers lay prone, sweat dripping from their brows, eyes fixed through scopes aimed at a steel target nearly 1,000 yards away. One shot rang out, then another. Dust plumed near the target, but the metal plate stayed silent. Missed again, the air buzzed with frustration. These men were the elite, the best of the best in training, yet the target mocked every bullet they sent its way. A young Marine cursed under his breath, slamming his rifle's bolt forward with a harsh click. "This wind's a nightmare," he growled. "Every time I compensate, it shifts again." The instructor barked, "Focus, Marine, adjust for drift, control your breathing." But even he sounded tired. The men had been missing all morning. Their pride was taking a beating. From the shade near the observation tower, an older figure stepped forward, all but slightly bent, his once dark hair now silver. He wore a sun-faded Marine cap with a small patch stitched across it. Vietnam veteran. His boots crunched against the gravel as he approached the firing line, his eyes hidden behind a pair of scratched aviators. The instructor turned, surprised. "Sergeant Major Reynolds," he said respectfully, straightening his posture. "Didn't expect to see you here, sir." The old Marine smirked. "Heard my boys are missing steel. Thought I'd see what kind of problem's eating them." The younger snipers glanced at each other, some smirking quietly. What could this old-timer possibly know that modern tech hadn't already solved? They had digital wind meters, ballistic calculators, and precision rifles. Hawk Reynolds, known among the Corps as the Ghost of Hugh, had nothing but an old-school swagger and 50 years of service behind him. Hawk knelt beside one of the shooters. "You mind if I take a look?" he asked. The Marine nodded and shifted aside. Hawk pressed his palm to the dirt, feeling the heat, then scooped up a handful of sand and let it flow through his fingers. The dust blew gently to the right. "There's your answer," he muttered. "You're fighting the wind instead of letting it guide you." One Marine frowned. "Sir, we already compensated for that. We've got wind readings right here." Hawk cut him off with a grin. "Wind doesn't live in your gadgets, son. It lives out there." He gestured toward the field, where the grass bowed slightly in waves. "You can't measure the wind. You learn to feel it." The instructor smiled faintly. He'd seen this before. Hawk's lessons were old-fashioned, sure, but they worked. "You boys got tech," Hawk said, setting a rifle down on the dirt. "We had instinct." He lay flat on the ground, resting his cheek against the rifle stock with the ease of a man who'd done it 1,000 times. His breathing slowed, his body went perfectly still. The only movement was the faint twitch of his trigger finger. Then, without a word, he squeezed the trigger. A sharp crack split the air, followed half a second later by a metallic ping. The target rang clean and clear across the valley, dead center. Silence swept across the range. The young Marines blinked. He hit it. One whispered, almost in disbelief. Hawk didn't even look up. "That's how it's done," he said casually, sliding the rifle back toward its owner. "Now let's see if you can dance with the wind, too." One by one, the Marines took their turns. Hawk adjusted their positions, straightened their elbows, and watched how they breathed. "You're breathing too fast," he told one. "You can't rush a good shot. Let your lungs settle. Feel the beat in your chest. That's your rhythm." Another Marine fired, missing wide left. Hawk nodded toward the horizon. "You see that shimmer out there? Not heat. That's the wind talking. Listen to it." Slowly, his words began to sink in. When the next Marine fired, the sound that followed was a clean metallic ring. The men started hitting their marks, first one, then another, until the steel target began to sing with the steady rhythm of success. Hawk smiled faintly, eyes glinting with pride. "There you go, boys. The rifle's just a tool. The real weapon's the man behind it." One young sniper looked at him with wide eyes. "How'd you learn to shoot like that, sir?" Hawk paused for a moment, then said quietly, "Vietnam, 1968. We didn't have fancy scopes. We had patience. Sometimes you'd wait for hours in the mud for one clean shot. You learn to let the world slow down, you stop fighting it, and that's when you hit." The Marines listened in awe. The way he spoke wasn't like an instructor. It was like a man who'd lived every word. As the day wore on, the group that had started the morning with frustration now stood tall with confidence. Every bullet was finding its home. The sun dipped low in the west, painting the sky orange and gold. Hawk finally stood, dusted himself off, and looked down the line of men. "Remember this," he said, his voice calm but firm. "A sniper doesn't shoot to kill. He shoots to end chaos. Every trigger pull should mean something. Respect it." The Marines nodded in silence. Hawk gave a small nod back and started walking away, his boots crunching in rhythm with the fading echoes of their shots. "Sergeant Major," one Marine called out, "you still got it, sir." Hawk turned slightly, that half-smile tugging at his lips. "Son," he said, "you never lose what you were born to do. You just let it rest till it's needed again." He kept walking until his silhouette vanished in the fading light. The next morning, when the young Marines returned to the range, they found a small note pinned to the target. It was written in neat, steady handwriting. It said, "Remember, the target never moves, the world does. Adapt, breathe, believe, Hawk." The Marines stood in silence, reading the message again and again. Then they took their positions, rifles steady, hearts calm, and with every breath, every shot, they remembered the old Marine who had taught them not just how to aim, but how to feel the shot. The steel target rang again and again, singing the song of precision, discipline, and the timeless spirit of the United States Marines.